So I don't know my time frame. Organizer, how many minutes? Minutes, okay. Okay, I think I'll still have to give you change because I may not speak for more than 15 minutes. Okay, so because the topic I have before me is something that is, I can say, is straightforward and something we can easily relate with. I'll be talking on healthy living for self and for society. Healthy living for self and for society. And whatever it is, good health cannot be wished away in any form. But there are a lot of misconceptions about health. And when you hear some people, they'll tell you, I've never been sick in my life. I see a lot of such expressions. Okay, I think because of I would have loved to maybe move around, but I think because of the camera, I've been constrained to one spot. Okay. So in the course of my practice as a medical practitioner, you see people maybe like a 40-year-old man, you are trying to take the medical history, and he will tell you, I've never been sick in my life. Yeah. Or somebody comes to the hospital, and you can see that he is obviously sick. You know, he's obviously sick, acutely ill-looking. And he comes to your consulting room, and you say, how are you? The first thing he will say is fine. But if you are fine, you will not be in the hospital. And of course, you are obviously looking sick. So, and that is the kind of mindset many people have about health. But the World Health Organization has helped us to define what health is. And it says that health is a state of complete physical, mental, and social well-being, and not just the absence of ailment or infirmity. So it's a state of complete physical, mental, and social well-being. So, and if you put all of this together, it means that apart from being physically fit, then you should also be mentally fit, and then your relationship with others too has to be healthy, and that is where the social well-being also comes to play. And we'll be looking at the effect of all this on our personal health and then on the society at large. So you begin to look at what correlation does my personal health has to do with the society. You know? So talking about healthy living. Healthy living is you sustaining a healthy lifestyle and introducing habits that will improve your health. So things that we do on a daily basis, then our orientation, these are the things that come together to form our lifestyle. How we think, how we relate with others, and the habits that we exhibit. And all of this also impacts on our health. And some scholars or researchers have come to conclude that the kind of leadership we experience in this part of the world is actually as a result of the kind of health care that we have enjoyed. So, which means that the leaders we have, they are only a product of the kind of health care they have received so far. And that was why when, I think it was Bill Clinton, when he came to Nigeria about a year ago, he advised the government that if they can prioritize two things, that our society or our country will be better for it. And what are those two things? He mentioned education and healthcare delivery. That if our leaders can get those two things right, then every other things will fall in place. So, and which also give credence to that belief that we are suffering bad leadership today because we have all had bad healthcare in the country. And take for instance, we all know egg, right? Yes, raw egg. We know how it is. When you put it in a hot water, it transforms, isn't it? From the original state to a new state. And then, yes, for us, we may think it is, how will I put it now? Yes, it's an advantage. That's what we want, because we want to eat the egg, whether I want to boil or we want to fry or whatever. But what has actually happened is that egg has been denatured from its original form into a new form. It has been denatured. And the same thing we experience, especially as children in our childhood days. How many times we have seen children, or probably ourselves, so if you can flash back and remember, that we have fallen sick and our temperature has increased. We call it fever, isn't it? You say, somebody touches you and say, your body is so hot. It's because that temperature has moved from what nature has placed it to be, which is at 37 degrees centigrade, or even lower, maybe like 36.5, 36.7, to a temperature of about 39, at times 40. And our body is composed mainly of protein. So the same way the protein in that egg got denatured, the same way some cells in our body also get denatured by such increase in body temperature. And you see some children, they fall sick almost every 3 months. If it is not malaria, it will be pneumonia. If it's not that, it could be meningitis and all sorts of. And then they go through series of increased body temperature from time to time. And for each case, there's always something getting denatured in the body, some cells. So by the time the person comes to the age of adulthood, probably about a reasonable size of his body cells are already denatured. And God help you if the denatured cells are from the brain cells. They can now imagine how retarded such a person will be when it comes to mental alertness, when it comes to cognitive exhibition of decisions or ideas. Are you with me? So if you are able to now get it right from that point, that as from the age of newborn, there are preventive measures of children getting sick and all of that, then pray be our leadership style will begin to also change. And I think that is the difference between us, and then the developed clients or countries, as it were. So I'll just paint us a scenario, and then I might call it a day. And I want to say something that many of us will be able to relate with, when it comes to health. A woman gets pregnant, and then she delivers a baby. Due to some circumstances, poor economy, and then the struggle to make ends meet, she cannot afford not to go to work. And then science has taught us that for a newborn should enjoy what we call exclusive breastfeeding for a minimum period of 6 months. But how many parents, how many mothers in this current age will be able to afford that luxury of time of not going to work or pursuing a business or other endeavors, just to sit at home and nurse a baby for 6 months. It is very, very rare, especially in the current or prevailing state of things, where even while working, you still find it difficult to meet up with family responsibilities. So you see a situation where the mother says, okay, probably immediately after 1 month of giving birth, she goes back to work, leaving that baby at the mercy of maybe a house help, or she takes the baby to a daycare, and then most likely she wins the baby at that point. For some, they'll say, okay, maybe when they come back from work, they can breastfeed. But for some too, when they come back, there are house chores and all of that, and then they say, they just end it there. The baby begins to live on baby formula. And because the baby was not well breastfed, then it might get malnourished. More so if the baby is put in the hands probably of a house help or the daycare, people who may not care properly, and they may not also be well observant about development about that baby. Then the baby becomes malnourished, and because it's malnourished, the body immunity becomes very low. Then the baby is now prone to several infections, things that the body could have fought successfully. It now begins to weigh the baby down. And because the mother and the father, they still find it difficult to meet up with responsibilities of the family. And then maybe at that point the house help misbehaved. They have to chase the house help away. Then what do? They now register that baby to a school at the age of 2. I think you can relate with what I'm saying. Yeah. At the age of 2, you see this child already enrolled in school. We see them around with their knapsack and the lunch box and everything. A child of 2-year-old is already in school. And still, because they cannot afford to they cannot afford that luxury of time to go drop him off in school and pick him up, they contract the school bus to come and pick up the child. The school bus comes at 6:15 in the morning, because the school resumes 7:30. I still have to pick other pupils before they get to school. So by 6:15, the bus is already there. And that child of 2-year-old has to join that bus. I'm saying all of this so that we can understand where the problem actually started from. And for that baby to join the school bus at 6:15, we can all imagine at what time that child would have been woken up. Maybe as early as 5:30 to get him dressed for school. So, and this is a child, naturally, that should still be enjoying, the pampering of the mother, still be enjoying cuddling and all of that. But it's already been subjected to some rigors of life at that tender age. So he's woken up 5:30. The school bus takes him away at 6:15, and he gets to school. And because of the trauma that he had gone through earlier in life, he has fallen sick of malaria about 3 times. He had fallen sick of pneumonia about 2 times, and all of that. And maybe he has had convulsion, and so his mental alertness is not as sharp. Then the teacher says this child is not responding well to his studies. You can imagine a 2-year-old boy or a 2-year-old girl. Then the solution to that will be that he has to do extra lesson. So by 3 as in age 3, he closes from school, he stays back for extra lesson. The school naturally closes at maybe 2 or 2:30. Then has to stay back for extra lesson till 4 o'clock. Then the school bus picks him at 4, takes him back home, maybe 5:30 earliest, or even 6 at times. If it's a place like Lagos where there is traffic and all of that, then before he gets home, it's around 6. Then when he gets home, maybe the mother will quickly get something for him to eat. And as he's getting home, there is an assignment from school. Then the mother will also force him. And what is the assignment? It could be scribbling. I don't know what is in scribbling. The mother will force him, put pencil in his hand. Oh yeah, right. He may be crying. He may be, right, you have to do this thing. You know? And then that takes them to around maybe 9 p.m. He will be lucky if he sleeps well at 9 p.m. Maybe that time there's no light. There is heat and everything. You know? And by 5:15 or 5:30, he's up again the following day. And the cycle continues. And then, still because the parents are not always around, he may come back from school and they say, okay, look at where the key is. He picks up the key and stay in the house all by himself. At best, they may tell neighbors, please, he's going to come back around 3 or around 5. I won't be around. See, this is his food flask. Help me make sure that he eats. And if it were to be a female child, then that child at that age is being exposed to a lot of abuse. It's been exposed to a lot of abuse, maybe at age 9, age 10. Then an uncle or a neighbor somewhere is already abusing that girl child. That may go on for a while, and then before you know it, you could get pregnant, maybe at age 15. He's already pregnant. And before then, you could have been experiencing also some health challenges such as infection here and there, you know. And then if the mother is also, or the parents are also not observant, that may go unnoticed. There was a patient that I encountered recently, and then she was brought to the hospital, and by the time she came, it was too late. That girl child, I think she was around 14, had been bleeding for an upward period of 1 year, and the mother did not know. The mother didn't know. She had been bleeding from her private part for more than 1 year. So she had what we call chronic anemia. And by the time she was brought to the hospital, she was already in anemic shock. And she didn't survive it. It was the younger sister, you know, after a lot of fact-finding, who said that she noticed that her elder sister was always bleeding. And I think there are occasions he had wanted to tell the mother, but the mother was not there. So, and that predates this, you know, child that we are describing getting pregnant. Then there are two options when she gets pregnant. For some people, they may take a decision of aborting that pregnancy, which puts further risk on that child for things that are not her own fault in any way, but just due to the fact that she is just a victim of circumstances that surrounds her. That is one option. The other option would be that, okay, let's leave it. Especially if the father is a pastor and the mother is a deaconess, they say, okay, no, we can't do abortion, just leave it. Then at that age, that child becomes a mother. Maybe at age 16. Now let's look at the two pathways. If it were to be abortion, the option, then your guess is as good as mine. The kind of trauma and the kind of risk that girl child will be subjected to. If it were to be that, okay, you can have the baby, teenage pregnancy, or they could even say that it's better, who is responsible? It's better you just go to that person's house. Then that takes us to the path of early marriage, and then becoming a mother at the age of 16. As a medical practitioner, I know the risks that are involved. So if a woman that is less than 2021 gets pregnant, it's a high-risk pregnancy. It could claim the life of the young girl. If she successfully gives birth, I'm sure many of us may have come across the term VVF, vesical vaginal fistula. And that's a condition where the womb gets perforated and then links up with the urinary bladder of a woman, such that she can no longer control her urine. And then, so the urine would flow into the womb, that is the uterus. And then, during her menses, the blood will flow from the uterus into the urinary bladder. Yeah. That's what we call VVF, vesical vaginal fistula. And these are things that are very, very common. You may not be so comfortable with it in this part of the country. But if you go to the north, it is a common occurrence. Because there, teenage pregnancy, early marriage is the norm. So you see a girl of 3-year-old is already given out in marriage. Yes. And Alaji would have come to pay for the dowry at the age of 3. That this is my wife. Then the parents will now nurture that girl until maybe the age of 11. And then she's given out to that Alaji in marriage. So at that part of the country, it's a common occurrence. And it's claiming so many lives. So this girl child, and because she gave birth at that age, she has been pushed to start staying with a man. And then what would be her level of education at that age? How well can she think and take decisions at that age? Then rather than maybe now go for what we call family planning, because of the ignorance, they still will not do that. They will now realize that the following year she's pregnant again, and then she sees it as a way of life. And because there is no long enough interval between one pregnancy and the other, then it also begins to deteriorate our own health. So a girl of 18 is already having 3 kids. We see them a lot. Maybe because it's my field. I see them a lot. And then, by the age of 21, she already have 4 kids, or 5, that are not then. What is her own economic power? 0. Probably she dropped out of school at JS3, so there's no certificate, no skills, so she does not have any economic power. So to train those children becomes a problem. The man in question, maybe he was not even interested in marrying the girl in the first place. But because of circumstances, the girl was pushed to her. Then she will tell that, no, this is not my choice. Or peradventure, yes, she might have been his choice ab initio, but because the girl has stopped schooling, but the man or the guy continued his education, is now a graduate, the girl is just a GS3 dropout, then he feels that, no, the girl is no longer his match. So he start looking to maybe marry another woman, neglecting this poor girl to take care of herself and the children, then remembering that she does not have that economic power, then these children become wayward, they become delinquent, and then they become miscreants in the society. So I want to peg that line at that point. Then let's look at that child we are talking about. I said if it were to be a girl. What if it were to be a boy? So at that point, when that girl was being abused, if it were to be a boy, then it begins to join, bad gangs, begin to have negative peer influence, then it may begin to now engage in illicit drug taking, may now begin to engage in some other vices. Then that pathway will lead him to becoming an area boy. And if it were to be somewhere in the north that this is happening, it becomes an almanjeri. You know almanjeris. Do we know them? Have you heard that word before? Okay. So they roam the streets. All what the father owes children there is just a plastic plate of food. Once he's able to give him that, he roams the streets begging for food and all of that. And along the line, he now matures and then transforms into what we call Boko Haram today. Then we now see, the impact of that on the society. So if you now look at both pathways, whether that child is a girl or a boy, they end up affecting the society negatively. So, and then they begin to, look at the issue of Boko Haram, a lot of insecurity in the land. You see a lot of killings, a lot of maiming, and, a lot of injury, prayers of, afflicting people with different degrees of injury and all of that, and ultimately killing people and all of that. So we can know the impact of that. And then kidnappings here and there, and people are beginning to now fly away from their original habitats. If the government is kind enough, they build a refugee camp for them where there will be no food, there will be no proper toilet system, and then they mingle amongst themselves and still begin to now transmit one form of infection to another. And that also happens. The girl child I talked about, because she's a girl of low socio-economic status, maybe the man drives him out. He will be lucky to get one room to stay, maybe with her 5 or 6 children, and then she may also have her own sister or siblings that may want to come and stay with her. Then that makes about 10 of them staying in one room. And that amounts to what we call overcrowding. And then there will be congestion, poor ventilation, and you see them falling sick from time to time. I know some of my colleagues that, in fact, for them to site their hospital, they look for such settlements where there is overcrowding. They tell you that is where the money is. Because these people who do not have enough money, they are the ones that fall sick all the time. Because of this thing that I've talked about. There is poor sewage. Their drinking water is missing with the soakaway water. So what do you expect? They will fall sick. Because there is overcrowding, there will be spread of tuberculosis and some other airborne infections. And then because they also need money to eat, then they get easily influenced, maybe by one uncle there, who will now eventually give them HIV and all sorts. So this is the kind of scenario that we see in our society, and that is impacting on us. And the pathetic aspect of it is that few people who are now conscious of their own health, who are doing the right thing, will now suffer for the ignorance and the mistakes of the other people. And that is why the society angle, that is where it comes into it. Because we are talking about healthy living and for self and the society. So if you now look at it now, if you agree with me with the scenario that I've painted, take Boko Haram for example, as a result of improper health care from the scratch, then how many people today are suffering the effects of Boko Haram? So people who are conscious enough about their health are suffering it because they don't care. In fact, they see people who are living a good lifestyle to be their targets. So now it is not enough to say, well, if you don't take care of your health, it's your problem. We have to ensure that the health of every individual is paramount to us. Otherwise, we will all suffer the implication of the bad health or the health ignorance of our neighbors. And that is the truth. And does it not surprise you that countries like the US, countries like UK, and then maybe international or global philanthropists, they pick up interest in some settlements? Let's say Nigeria. A person like Bill Gates, he has the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. That is Bill and his wife, and they do a lot of philanthropy in the area of health, especially to African countries. You begin to surprise that what is his business with the health of Africans? He's not staying here for crying out loud. We see countries like US under the auspice of United States aid, that is USAID, they make a lot of donations in terms of equipment, in terms of drugs, medications, technology, and all of that to low resource countries like Nigeria and other African countries. And do you know why? They are doing that